All right, let's call tonight's meeting to order. Tonight we have a city council budget session meeting. Today's Tuesday, October 10th, 2023. It's now 6:30 p.m. and we have a fairly moderate agenda before us. It shouldn't take too long. And if I understand correctly, if things go well tonight and tomorrow, we may not have a Thursday one unless council feels so inclined to have an extra meeting. We could certainly do that. So anyway, short of that, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and get started. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, council. Thank you, everyone. Okay, City Clerk, could we please conduct the roll call?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Palmer.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Whitting.
Present.
Councilmember Dorr.
Present.
Councilmember Ferris.
Present.
Councilmember Castema.
Present.
Councilmember King.
Present.
Mayor Johnson.
And thank you, President. Council, before us, we have an agenda before us, items 1A through 1E, and some opportunity for citizens' comments. If you're so inclined, I might entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, Council, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for the study session, budget session before us. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you, Council. Okay, let's see here. The first agenda item is that we have a financial director overview by our one and only finance director, Barbara Lopez.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Johnson. Good evening, Council. Barbara Lopez, Finance Director. So tonight, I just want to give you a brief overview of the changes that we have worked through for the mid-biennium overview. Okay. I am not doing well at advancing to the next slide. Got it. Thank you. So for tonight's agenda, we'll be talking a little bit about the process that we went through, a little bit about the economic climate that we're living in right now, the proposed adjustments. We'll talk about the property tax levy and tier 3 funding that is available. So first up, the mid-biennium process. As you all know, we do a biennial budget, meaning last year this time we considered and you all adopted the 23-24 budget. So according to state law, a mid-biennium review is actually required of that second year. And that is the process that we are doing right now. Basically, we use it to respond to new information that's available since that initial budget was adopted. We intentionally keep it pretty narrow in focus. So we review our revenue projections. I brought those to you on July 18th. We also incorporate any known significant changes to baseline expenses, like cost of living increases, things like that. We also consider department budget initiatives. If there are things that are out there that are newly identified and or urgent needs that can't actually wait until the next biennial budget. We also talk about lodging tax, LTAC, and community funding recommendations. Those we need to do on an annual basis. And then we also update the 6-year capital plan. So with the economic climate, all we have to do is look out there and it's still continued uncertainty. We do have some positive signs like strong employment growth, low unemployment, but then we still have some high inflation. We've got those correlating high interest rates that's trying to drive the inflation down. As a result of that, we've got some slowing of residential construction and home sales and just kind of an overall low consumer confidence. It's one of those things where, people are still going out for dinner. They're still buying the things that their family needs, but maybe some of those big ticket purchases, they are not doing those right now. So moving forward, we still expect this slower economy, and there is still talk of a recession out there, at least for the remainder of this year and possibly into early next year. Economists are predicting that some of that slowness should start to diminish by early next year. And then by the last half of next year, starting to get back to more pre-pandemic levels, and inflation coming down further and interest rates coming back down again. All of this are predictions. We will see what happens. But in light of all of this, we made an extra concerted effort to keep any updates in the mid-biennium to a minimum. We were already doing that, but we did an extra good job of it this year. So this table shows kind of a crosswalk between what was adopted for 2024 and then the adjustments that we are actually proposing for the mid-biennium update. So the adopted budget that was adopted last year was $148.8 million. We have 4 different categories of expenditure adjustments that we're proposing. One called the labor matrix, that's just over $500,000. Labor matrix is how we budget for salaries and benefits for positions. It's what we call it, the labor matrix. So with that, those labor matrix additions include the additional 2% COLA that we needed to do to bring up to bargaining unit contracts and police accreditation pay. And then some of those increases were actually partially offset because we've had a lot of turnover in staffing over the last couple of years. And typically what happens is, staff who's been here longer at a higher level, newer staff comes in at a slightly lower level. So there were some offsets there. So those proposed changes citywide were $523,554. Then there's $1.6 million for the Tier 3 transfer. This represents in 2022, the end of last year, our general fund reserves were over the 15% maximum by $1.6 million. What this transfer does is it takes it out of the general fund and it moves it over to budget stability till it sits there until council allocates it to a one-time project. So it's just simply moving those monies. Capital projects, there is an addition of about $1.8 million. These are predominantly grant-funded projects, including things like Valley Avenue overlay, 4th Street storm improvements, and the storm comprehensive plan, adding those in so that we can continue work on those. And then the last category are actual, quote, additions to the budget that are $24,199. And just for the record, this is only the expense side. You will find that there are revenues that will actually offset the cost of that. But this was just from the expense perspective. So overall, we're proposing to add just shy of $4 million to the 2024 budget, which is about a 2.5% increase. Taking a little bit closer look at those that impact the general fund on the next slide. So the general fund proposed adjustments total just over 2.1 million. It's that labor matrix piece, the transfer from to the Tier 3 transfer, and then the additions. Below that, we're showing what are our proposed funding sources for that. So the additions that will be talked about by the city manager here in a few minutes. The $24,199 will actually be reimbursed by the administrative office of the courts. The 1.6 million transfer is the excess reserve. So we have that money in the bank to transfer that. And then for this mid-biennium update, we are proposing to use salary savings that the city has had this year versus what was budgeted. We run vacant positions. We have some salary savings to use that salary savings to pay for next year's additional. That will leave us something that we will definitely have to take a look at in the 25-26 biennial budget. But for now, given this economy, we feel like that's it keeps the biennium whole, and that is our best option for doing these required COLA changes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Barbara. Thank you. Just question on the 1.6 tier 3.
Yes.
We anticipated that, right?
We anticipated some level of
In the
that.
budget.
Yeah.
We were estimating what it would be. And about,
This is over and above what we were estimating last year.
oh, it is.
Yes.
We have more money
Yes. And I
coming
will,
out of 2022 than we thought, or
yes,
leftover, whatever you call it.
we had a little bit more left over than we thought while we were working on the budget last year.
So when you say 1.6 transfer, is that essentially that's 1.6 more in tier 3? Is that?
Yes. And I do have a tier 3 slide coming
Okay, you'll
up so
cover
that
that. Yeah.
I will cover that.
I just want to make sure we weren't like, I didn't want to be confused that we're adding it to the budget to cover other costs. No.
Nope.
Got it.
Nope.
Barbara, just so I have this clear, based on what you said then, with the savings from employee salaries that we didn't spend, the net effect is 0, correct? For this,
Yes.
it is. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Thanks.
The next piece I wanted to touch on is the property tax levy itself. So in the budget, we did include the 1% allowable increase for 24. That amount is $98,881. That is calculated per Pierce County. We've gotten our initial preliminary certification for the levy. That gives us our assessed valuation. That gives us, what they say is our allowable 1%. So the 2024 estimated levy, because they are still finalizing numbers at Pierce County, so we won't know till kind of the last minute, is just over $10 million. Based on our assessed valuation, that comes to right at just barely shy of $1 per 1,000 of assessed valuation. Pierce County annually also does a residential revaluation where they calculate the median value home in jurisdictions. Ours has gone down for this next go around. It was 524, 550, but it's now 491, 410. That's the median value of a home in Puyallup. So the estimated cost on that median value home for just our regular property tax is $490 for the year.
Barbara, can I point something out?
Sure.
It's just been made aware to me, and I have not heard the council articulate this before, but of your property tax in the city of Puyallup, it is approximately 11%. That 490 is 11% of your entire property tax. So with that 11%, it funds all city services, or, the street cleaning, the parks, the police, all of that in that 11%. I only point that out because fire, I believe, is about 14%. Schools is about 25%. County is fairly, I think it's less than that, but certainly higher than what we receive. And then, of course, the state is way up there, probably
School
25, 30.
district.
Yes. So it's good to point that out to the constituents that of that, because we often are told, we're not being fiscally responsible, or some people may say that. And the fact of the matter is we have 11% of that, of the property tax.
That's impressive. Yeah, thanks for bringing that to light. I think that should be highlighted a little bit more in the future, that we make that public information known, and then maybe perhaps as a council, see if we can try and move the needle a little bit, if possible.
And then my last slide is about the tier 3 monies that are available for one-time spending. So as I mentioned earlier, our year-end general fund reserves as of the end of last year was over the maximum of 15% by $1.6 million. By policy, those monies that are in excess are added to tier 3 spending for the next year.
Hmm.
So that was the 1.6 million.
Hmm.
So adding to the 4 million that was remaining unallocated from last year, there's about $5.6 million of tier 3 monies that are available for one-time spending. This budget, our proposal to you we are not recommending any allocation of those dollars. It does not include any. So that $5.6 million is sitting there earning interest and waiting for future allocation. Yes.
Thank you. So that's good news, because I think as this budget has carried on, we were concerned that we might have to use that to cover some of this year's operating expenses and
Yes.
stuff. But it appears we're halfway through almost. It doesn't look like we'll need to dip into that to cover our ongoing.
Correct. And as a matter of fact, even though sales tax is actually running on average 2 to 3% less this year per month than it did last year, it's looking like we will actually squeaky meet our budget for sales tax, which means we don't need to have to try to cover any losses there, because we budget expenses just counting on meeting that budget. And it looks like we're going to meet that budget this year.
It's good.
Not really anything extra, but we'll meet the budget.
Yeah,
It's great. It's good.
that's good.
Healthy.
Yes. And so that was it. And I'm happy to answer any questions for you.
Council, I think that was a good overview. Unless you wanted to dig into the weeds, I would suggest that we move on to item 1B. Certainly don't want to rush, but if you're happy with that, we'll move on. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
Our city manager, Steve Kirkley, is going to give us some city manager recommendations. And I understand he's got some big asks tonight. And so hopefully hang on to our seats and make sure we don't pass out with all these big budget asks he's going to ask for now.
Gonna sorely disappoint you in there. I'm sorry. Oh my goodness. So good evening, Mayor and Council. Steve Kirkley, your city manager. I do have to note that Councilmember Palmer, this is number 12 for you in your last budget study sessions. So 12 years must be a little surreal for you.
Should we be thankful for him or pity him? I'm trying to figure out how should we act with this?
And Councilmember Ferris, your last one. So
Yeah.
anyway.
Well, let's make this fun. Let's have some fun on this one.
So, when you approved the biennial budget process back in 2020, and, one of the things why cities do biennial budgets, and it really has become a best practice throughout this state and really nationwide, is because you want to spend that first year planning. And then the midpoint, the checkup, as we say, really is, generally speaking, supposed to be pretty uneventful. And so I think we've delivered on that, and you have delivered on that with this mid-biennium checkup. Last year, when the biennial budget was set, there was a lot of heavy lifting on staff's part and on your part. And so now it's just merely a check-in and see how we're doing. So when we were putting together the update, as Barbara had mentioned, our approach to this is, unless there is something that is absolutely essential or something has occurred that we didn't know about, we weren't going to add anything. And if you've looked at the budget, and you see that really there are only two requests. Both of the requests, one is funded by it's in the general fund, but it's reimbursable. And the other one is in the utility fund. So I'm going to go through those two requests. So it'll be a very brief, to the point PowerPoint presentation. So the two positions are converting the community court case manager from 3/4 time to a full-time position. And the other one will be adding a public works engineering contract specialist in the public works engineering division. So the community court case manager, all of you recall 3-4 years ago, the municipal court, who I believe they are here, Judges Beal and then Ellen Atterbury, the court administrator here. They came to you, and Tara Evans with the prosecutor's office, and you all approved a community court over in the municipal court. It's gone very well. If you don't know what the community court does, which I know all of you do, but it basically is a court that takes persons who are charged with crimes and are prosecuted in our court and really diverts them through the community court process and links them to treatment, links them whether it's substance abuse, mental health, and it's a more collaborative approach between the prosecutor's office, which is our city attorney's office, the court, and then probation and the public defender's office. But to make that kind of circle happen, there's a case manager right in the middle. And that case manager is the person who basically manages all the cases. And so the court has found great success with this case manager. When their memo to me, when they were asking for this, basically said, you know, this case manager is really why this program in large part has been successful. And so the state, the Administrative Office of the Courts, which is a state agency, has recognized how well our court has done on this, and also statewide, how these rehabilitative courts are having some success. And so they have funded these throughout the state. And so we have money that we can seek through the state to reimburse for this additional $25,000. So it is an expense against the general fund, but it will be reimbursed 100% from the state. The next position is a Public Works Engineering Contract Specialist. And Hans Hunger, our city engineer, will be here tomorrow. He's here this evening, but he'll do a presentation tomorrow on our capital improvement projects and that plan. As part of that, he's going to talk about some of our engineering capacity challenges that we're having, and he'll go over that. We had a consultant come in and do a basic level staffing analysis for just the public works engineering. It's not a comprehensive, like, you know, the police department had, if you recall, they're quite comprehensive and extensive. Engineering just isn't that big to do that. So we had a solo practitioner. He came in and did a very basic level analysis. And then Hans is also, and Ken Davies, our public works director, have looked at it as well. And so Hans will go over some of those recommendations in addition to our current projects in the CIP realm. One of the positions that they are recommending that they would like to start this next year, so on January 1st, is this engineering contract specialist. And basically what that position does is they process all the contracts with our public works. You know, a lot of people don't realize, especially those who, you know, come into government from the private sector, they find out about this thing called public works bids and the whole process for public work contracting. It's not as simple, you know, as just, hey, we want to go build this road. There is a whole body of law, statutory, and there's even some case law out there on how we have to go about these projects. And so, you know, we have 41 active public works projects right now, and each one of those projects has about 1 to 4 contracts per project. And so some of the things that we have to do, and I mean, I could go down an extensive list, the bonding, L&I, you know, the change orders, anytime anything changes in the contract, the project. There's just an assortment of tasks that have to be completed. The agenda bills, I'll let you in on a little inside the lane or inside the baseline secret here. If you haven't noticed, then in your agenda bills up here on top, it says submitted by. So you see a lot of these public works agenda bills that come through across for your approval. Michelle Gehring, that name up there, that's our civil engineering contract specialist. And so she actually writes many of these agenda bills. Hans and others do as well, but it's mainly Michelle. So it's a very important position. And what we are seeing, and Hans can talk about this a little bit more tomorrow, is that the engineers are actually having to do a lot of this contract processing. And so this position will really set us up for the next, you know, decade, because you all approved the utility rate study in December. That is $98 million and 92 projects over the next decade. That's a lot, but it's good. It's what our community wants and needs. And so without a contract specialist, we're not even going to get close to hitting that. So that is the second request. This will be funded out of the utilities. So Barbara, finance director, has worked with Hans and Ken, and they have a system now where we can allocate the cost of this position to the projects that they're working on. So it's a really good model. So it is not a general fund expense. This is coming out of the utilities. So that's it. Kind of underwhelming, but those are the two requests.
So,
Excellent. Thank you.
Steve, I am fully supportive of the court and the community court, but I'm just curious as far as the reimbursement, is that a one-time thing or is that an ongoing program that the state is funding?
It is ongoing as long as the state funds it. So it's not a one time. So as long as it's funded by them, it is ongoing.
That was an excellent lawyerly answer. Thank you.
Yes. Politicians are pretty good at that too, you know. Yeah, yeah. Colleagues, any other comments or thoughts on this before we move on? Thank you, Steve. It looks like colleagues, we might be able to get out of here like in 20 minutes, which is fantastic. Great. Yeah, that's right. Okay, next we're going to move on to 1C, the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, LTAC recommendations. I can share a little bit on that. And if we have further questions, Barbara can speak to that. So the good news is the 2022 awarded LTAC that we had to distribute was around $600,000. With the economy a little bit sluggish the following year, we had to drop it $44,000. But look at this. You look at what 2023, what we had to work with an award was $185,000 over 2023. So there's plenty of resources to go around. As a result of that, every single allocation was increased fairly significantly. And so with that being said, there was a vote of the LTAC, and by the way, too, the LTAC for 2023 took about 15 minutes. This one took about 20. So we got out of here pretty quickly. There wasn't a lot of huge debate. It was passed, I think, 6 or 7 to 1 or whatever. It was a pretty overwhelming majority. And so I have the recommendation before you as listed in 2024 LTAC recommended. Is this as a study session, Steve? Do we need any motion on this to pass, or is this a recommendation?
You're not voting on anything, but what council's done is kind of taken a straw poll. So we at least have an idea of where council is. So when we bring the ordinance for first reading in November, we
Sounds good.
know what to bring.
Okay. Well, it's pretty cut and dry. Everyone got a significant increase. You can see as you go down the poll, all things fun sports got a 42% increase. Arts Downtown got a 40% increase. Daffodil Festival, 32%. Foot Rails to Trails got 106. Symphony got 14%. Historical Society, 28% increase. Main Street got a 44% increase over last year. Chamber got 19% and Travel got a 38% increase, 67% for the Oldfield. And so overall, everyone got roughly, it looks like that 33% increase over last year. But I don't know if that last one may not be accurate. In any case, it was an increase. It was pretty cut and dry. The LTAC voted to pass it. So short of any questions, you want a straw poll?
So I have some concerns about cutting meeker days. I see the increase, but I did get an email from Ideas Northwest.
Yeah.
So the fair now is doing 11 graduations instead of 3. And so they are not able to support meeker days as they have in the past. So Kelty Pierce sent me an email that the meeker days, just as it is going to be anywhere from 25 to 55,000 more to put on. That they have.
That's good.
So I have a list here, but the fair provided picnic tables, garbage carts, chairs, cart for the main stage, fire extinguishers, grease trap, sinks, a chuck wagon, which I'm not sure that I think I know what that is, but not positive. The tents, sandbags for the tents, 200 feet of fencing for the beer garden, cooler for the beer garden, and various electrical needs that portable panels, amp portable panels, Hubble extensions. These words mean nothing to me. I'm looking at Dennis because for some reason I feel like you should be the one that knows what's giving you credit. So just take it. Some amps, I don't know, but there's a lot of the expenses that they are going to have this year that they did not have previously because it was covered by the Washington State Fair, but they're not able to provide that this year. So, and Meeker Days is not a moneymaker for them. So we took all of the overage, the 13,750 or what was short off of Meeker Days, which has got more expenses. So I have a concern with that.
Okay, thank you. All right. How do you want to do a straw poll, Steve? Do we need any straw poll? Can we just bring it before as an ordinance unless there's any concern, consensus of concern?
Hey, can I just follow up on that
Yeah.
point? Since I wasn't obviously, can we get a little bit more information? And so it looks like from this that pretty much everybody got what they requested. And then the 13,700 was the amount that was above the amount we had, came out of Meeker Days. And so that was the one that got reduced compared to the request.
I think we need some clarity. I don't recall, Barbara. I don't think anything came out of Meeker Days. I don't know why that's getting line item vetoed here. That came out of just a general ask. I don't know where it's turning into Meeker Days. So we need to get some
Just where-
clarity on that.
It looks like where it shows up on the sheet there.
So it ended up on the form as being Meeker Days. I think that was the original. The reason why that was done was because that had by far the biggest increase. But realistically speaking, once this is awarded, as long as all four of those items, they stick within those four items, they can take from one and spend on the
Sure.
other. So if they underspend farmers market, they can take some of that and
Mhm.
allocate it to the Meeker
Okay.
Days.
Yeah.
I could update this to move it to the farmers or to reduce the farmers market and add it back to Meeker Days. So it goes to the organization, not necessarily the specific item under that organization.
Yeah. And that's how I understood. I don't recall anything in the LTAC to itemize anything within it. It was the organization amount, how they decipher that's up to them, the board. Yeah.
But it was taken from Main Street and not taken from anybody else to get to how much money we had.
Well, I don't think it was taken. It just wasn't awarded. They still walked away with $70,000 over the year before. So, one of the largest increases out of every single group. Right. So I don't think it was, taken. It was just pruned a little bit, but they still came out $70,000 more than any other group, in comparison. So I just don't think it's an issue that we need to make a big issue about. Okay. Good. Short of that, let's move on to 1D, community grant funding. And I think Deputy Mayor has a riveting presentation to give us on this.
Yes, this was a pretty easy one for us in the community grants funding as well. We, the grants awarded for 2024 are virtually the same as they were for 2023, with two exceptions. One, Vallejo Vocation did not apply for a grant this year, so that reduced our spending by $10,000. And St. Francis House requested $5,000 less than they had in previous years. So that reduced it $5,000. So we've asked for $15,000 less than we have in previous years. We felt like this was we're still in kind of a budget austerity mode, so we didn't have any desire to go out and allocate that to other organizations. So we just stood pat. That is my report.
So
Council.
I have a question. We don't get to see the documentation on either LTAC or community funding. So can I just ask what the increase for Open Hearth or Helping Hand, what were they seeking those additional funds? Was it a different program or? That
They-
125.
They routinely request more than we give. So if you look at the 2023, they request 130,000. We awarded 95. And that's kind of the way it's gone. So we just maintain the status quo there.
It just concerns me when we talk about homelessness and the things that, trying to offer resources, and then when we are less than, we had 159 in 2023 that we awarded. So but I wanted to know if there was a specific ask or if it was just a general increase, if there was something different. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor,
Please, yeah, go ahead.
so, just on the Helping Hands House and Open Heart. So those two were separate when I was on this committee. And, but after I was off the committee, the grant was actually twice what we did when I was on there. So it's actually increased a lot over the past, let's say 6 years or so. So, I mean, this only goes back to 22, but I'm just making that point that, and the other thing, I just want to, when I was on this, we always gave St. Francis House $30,000. And the reason why I think, you went way below what we're, not way below, but quite a few $1,000s below what we are authorized to give, which is 180, right? Anybody? 180. So the thing about that is she does budget counseling. People have to come in and give all their bills, what they have to pay and all of that. So she's actually helping, because a lot of people who end up homeless, they may lack in just life skills, really. And so what she does is she helps teach them those life skills, but also gives them a grant. Sometimes they have to pay it back, sometimes not, but she uses that money to keep people in their home, because once they're evicted, then it is a nightmare for them to get back into housing. And so while this seems like, a nothing burger here, I think that this money here is the best money that we can spend to prevent homelessness. So I recommend giving it at least 25, but I recommend giving the 30 that we used to give. And that's all I have to say about that.
If I could comment on that. Actually, they only requested 20,000 and they have multiple sources. And I think that the credibility of a request is that when she gets other funds in, she will ask less from the city. And that was my interpretation of that it was, she asked for what she needs, I guess, and they only requested 20.
Yeah, and Sister Pat retired, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I've never known Sister Pat to be, she speaks with a soft voice, but it's a big hammer she's carrying.
It's not, as Ned mentioned, it's not unusual that every year, oftentimes people ask for a whole lot more.
Absolutely.
And then it's kind of, they're used to that in the grant awarding process, is kind of shooting for the moon, and then they get realistic. I think that St. Francis House has had a little different philosophy.
Yeah, I guess I didn't see that she only requested 20,000. I'm thinking she might have said, okay, well, we didn't get that much, but if that is how have you talked to her then? And that's kind of her.
Yes,
Talk to a person.
yes.
Did you?
I've had discussions with St. Francis House and basically there was a lot of need for rent and utility assistance during COVID.
Yeah.
But that need has abated,
Okay.
so that their request is abated in accordance with that.
The organization said that through their paperwork or, okay. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Council, short of any further discussion on that, we will move on to the last item of,
Still,
excuse me, I'm sorry, I didn't catch it. I would encourage, just in this kind of casual, just pipe up. You don't need to wait for me to call. Just go for it. Just pipe up. Just pipe up. Yeah. Just pipe up. Yeah.
so I just had an overall comment. It's curious that we only had 4 requests this year. And so I don't know if there's anything to that in terms of what we're seeing out there. curious to me that we only had 4. Which leads me to make sure that we're getting the word out. I mean, we used to get, even 23, we had 8, and I think we used to get 10 to 12
Yeah, I do recall that.
historically. And so I just put a question mark on that, on why we're not getting more applications on this.
Jump in there.
It's been indicated to me by many people in the nonprofit sector that with COVID funds, there was a lot.
Yeah.
Windfall.
There really was a lot of money. There's, someone told me that they had like a $500,000 in the bank
Yeah.
in reserve. So I think that just was a huge influx. I'm not saying that it isn't going to wear out, but
Yeah.
I know I was told that was the case.
Yeah, with the amount of ARPA funding that has been out there.
Yeah.
Our community grants funds are
Peanuts.
peanuts in
Yeah.
the big scheme of things. They're
Right.
looking at millions of dollars and we're talking tens of thousands.
Right.
So their time is better spent going after the big bucks and they don't bother going after us. Now, when ARPA runs out at the end of 2024, in our next biennium, we can expect.
They'll be back.
Resurgence and
Yeah. They'll be back.
So
Why, hey, Deputy, Vallejo, that was one that we were kind of optimistic about moving forward. Why didn't they?
I think it's the same story.
Same story, you think?
And, they didn't submit a request and I don't. By the time I see the request, that the deadlines have already passed. So I put in some calls to some of the folks and it's, either we reopen the period all over again and let everybody apply again.
Right.
Or we leave it shut and it just seemed like there wasn't the demand for these additional funds, so we just left it shut.
Yeah.
And didn't try and solicit anything further.
Okay.
So Steve, when are these applications due?
Dan
Okay.
Vessels.
Dan, when are these applications due?
If you give me 1 second, Councilmember Dorr, I can give you specific information on that. But while I'm looking this up, I can let you know that we did actually, for example, with Vallejo, we did have communications with the director of that before the deadline period expired, just to remind him that the application period was open, as well that his annual report was due, and he did not indicate, excuse me, to my office that he was interested in applying for any funds for the following year.
Okay.
But to let you know, council members, this information was published in the Tacoma News Tribune as well as on city website through a public notice on Friday, June 23rd. The application period ran through Friday, July 21st. And members of my office reached out to every organization that applied for funds in 2022 and 2023 by email at least twice, notifying them of this period. We did receive, excuse me, I did receive feedback from 2 of the organizations that applied in 2022 and 2023. I met with one of them regarding feedback from my office in the past of ways to ensure that they could just get communication that their application was received. Both those organizations indicated that they were interested. I followed up subsequent to that, and that neither of them applied for funds.
Okay, so the reason,
It's a slacker, don't you?
yeah, my question was about St. Francis House. So it would be my assumption that their application was submitted while Sister Pat was still here. That's where I was going with that. Thank you.
All right. Council, anything else? Councilor King, did you have anything on that? Okay. All right. Council, without any further discussion, we'll move on to the last item of the night, and then we'll open up for citizen comments, and we may get out of here before 7:30. Pretty impressive. Attorney Beck, could we find some excuse for a executive session or something that we could go into?
No.
No. Okay. All right. Well, shoot. Okay. Give it a try. All right. City Manager Steve Kirkley, you have some city council initiative updates, I think.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to update council on the 3 city council initiatives that you approved in the biennial budget. First one is a civic center lighting project that was $100,000 in the LTAC. And so that project on your August 29th meeting, you authorized us, the city, to purchase the lighting, $75,000 in lighting. And then you will see on the next regular meeting, October 24th, I think, a contract with the electrical company to install them. And so the intent here is to have the lights up in the Civic Center complex, City Hall, Pavilion, Library, perhaps Giorgio's. We'll see. There's some challenges there by December 1st for the tree lighting, which will be the first Saturday in December. So that is the goal, absent some unforeseen circumstance. Second item was the dog run up at Metro Animal Services, which is the property up off 39th that the city owns, but is operated by Metro, which is operated by the city of Sumner. That was $65,000 of tier 3 funds. And because of the adjacency of where the dog run would be to a potential wetland, we had to do a survey. So we had to bring in a company. They did a survey. And at this point, that the surveyor doesn't believe that there will be any impacts of the wetland or any critical areas, but we're waiting for the final approval of that on a technical memo from the consultant. And the consultant has come up with 4 different options for dog run, have presented those to Metro, and just waiting for some feedback from Metro on what they think from an operational standpoint. So hopefully that should be done this year. And then lastly, you allocated $110,000 of tier 3 funds to the 2 parking lots. Well, to 2 parcels in downtown. One is right next to Bank of America downtown. And so that's 208 West Main. That parking lot is open, has been open since this summer, 12 spots within the 5,600 square foot parcel. The next one is for 313 West Meeker. That's the old parcel that was owned we owned it, but the former minister had a life estate there. And so that had to go to the hearing examiner, which it did. That's an 11,000 square foot parcel. We anticipate we'll be able to get about 14 parking spots there approximately. And we've just finished up the engineering estimate on that. And that will likely go out to bid sometime this year.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, City Manager. Short of any further discussions on those.
I got a $2 million request.
Please. Okay. All right.
Just-
Okay.
just kidding.
Okay. Go for it. I mean, if you wanted to get the onslaught,
Actually, I'd like to hear a little bit more about the lighting. I'm actually very excited to see that happen, and that will be the City Hall and surround Pioneer Park, the library, the pavilion. Am I correct?
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little bit about what that actually looks like?
Well, so it's Trimlight Northwest is the company we're going, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's who it is. And so basically what you can do is you can have these different themes of lights, right? So you can have a festive theme, 4th of July or Christmas theme or Thanksgiving theme, whatever you want. So the lights will change. And so one of your colleagues had told me that it's an Instagram sensation. And so I went home and I asked my 2 daughters, teenagers, I said, so City Council is planning to light up downtown around the pavilion. And one of them is telling me that you will go down there and take Instagram photos and put it out, and then people will come to see that. That's exactly what they said. And so I guess it's a thing where people come down and they take photos in the, area. It's very popular. And so in essence, we can have different themed lighting. So for, Halloween, you can have orange, and Christmas, you can have whatever, and Thanksgiving, and, pick a holiday. So we can
for
change it.
Santa Parade, we're going to have this.
That is the goal. So there were some challenges with L&I in getting the contractor certified through L&I because this is a very unique business. And so we had some challenges there, but we've worked through those. And so we're reasonably confident that this will be ready to go. And so when you all are on the stage down there at the Rotary stage and the button is flipped, not only will the tree lights come on, but the whole Civic Square will be lit up.
Wow. Well, I know that Councilmember King had hoped that we someday illuminate all of
Streetscapes,
Meridian,
Yeah.
at least down to,
streetscapes.
you
yeah.
know, a
Mhm.
reasonable length. So I do look forward to this. Sounds great.
Yeah, good. Thank you, council. Anything else before we move on to the citizens' comments and then possible executive sessions? So, okay, all right. Well, we have citizens' comments at this time, and for those of you who would like to speak, just a reminder that because it is a budget session. Is it correct, Steve or city attorney, that it can only be items that are on the agenda? It can't be general like most meetings. So if you want to talk about specific line item budget here, you're certainly welcome to talk about. Otherwise, general agenda items would be on a normal meeting. Is that correct? Okay, all right, good. So anyway, I think we only had one that requested a opportunity to speak, and that was Paul. So yeah, come on up. Yeah.
Yeah, it is quiet. Thank you, Mayor Johnson. My name's Paul Romich, I live in District 1. I guess I'll try to fit this best into the agenda as possible. But so like we were talking about budget, and obviously, times are hard for everyone. And right now, as we see cost of living increasing. Currently, so obviously we're, as a city, we're looking in so many ways, creative ways we can increase, funding of our own. And a lot of that comes down from above, and investments in our city from state, regional, and federal level. So at a regional level, the Sound Transit's currently doing a South Sound study for the Sounder train, and they're in trying to gauge interest at whether to expand or modify service as is. I can only imagine that expansion of service would be beneficial for everyone here in Puyallup. Currently the Sounder only runs during rush hour. That's great. Not, it's not useful if you have to make a lunch trip up to Seattle, or if you're trying to do something on the weekend, and that's not a Mariners or a Seahawks game, right? So I encourage, the study is open until October 29th, and hopefully, we get enough interest that maybe we can and we talk about, the really cool things about Puyallup, like the fair and Meeker Days, other events, and where we can get train service here, because it currently doesn't run on the weekends. So, a lot of our events are on the weekends, and it makes a lot of sense we can bring in more people, to increase, hopefully our spending dollars come next biennium.
Yeah.
That's all my time. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the citizens' comments we had. I will make one comment. I know we don't respond to citizens' comments, but just for the good of the order. Sound Transit is hearing from municipalities who are along the Sound Transit line about going into additional runs, and even on weekends and possibly nights. So there is some discussion, and a lot of municipalities were really feeding in, say because they were talking about, would you rather have fewer trains but longer to hold more people, or shorter trains and more runs? And everyone overwhelmingly said we want more runs, shorter trains. And because again, economic development, I think, is good for all cities along that corridor. If you operate on the weekends, you might want to go out and have some dinner, have some good time. You don't want to drink and drive. It's a great way to do that. Plus it's cheaper, less traffic. And then even the evening, no one works 9 to 5 anymore. I mean, who has that kind of shift anymore? So to have, I think shifts that go into the evening is a good idea. So anyway, I just want to give for the good order on that.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
if I can comment on that too,
Yeah.
is that the Sounder station, as you know, when we were going into that as a council, we actually set aside funds so that we would monitor traffic, so that if we had to do mitigation based on really, there were a lot of fears, and rational fears that would cause a lot of congestion in that garage, and that it would increase throughput in some of the neighborhoods. I have to tell you, I have the people I have heard from, and my observation is it's been very successful, that garage. In fact, it has taken pressure off the neighborhoods, because before, people were parking their cars throughout Robbins neighborhood, for example. And now people have a place to go to.
Mhm.
They go on that bridge, so there's no threat of harm by going on these busy roads. It has really been a
Mhm.
pretty good success.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very pleased with that
Mhm.
parking garage, and from what I can observe, it's full.
Yeah. And thank you, council, for the liberty to it's off the agenda item, but I think we have a little bit of liberty here. It has a fantastic view from up there. You go up there in that rooftop and you look out over the city. It's a beautiful view. In fact, my granddaughter and my wife, we had a little McDonald's picnic lunch in the little overhead bridge, and we sat there with our little lawn chairs and we watched trains go by. It was kind of cool. So it's a neat community place, and certainly we don't.
Mr. Mayor, are
Yeah.
you gonna about ready to gather?
Yeah, but we got,
I just wanted
there's some
to-
liberty here. Yeah.
I just wanted to mention around the Sounder
Yeah.
is that we have 2 tracks going through the city. And when it comes to the tracks, the priority is that the freight trains have lowest priority, then it's the Sounder, and then it's Amtrak. And so when we're talking about more runs for the Sounder, then that can create, just so you know, I didn't know this till I was into adulthood, but it's just that because we don't have any way to expand our railroad tracks through here, that it becomes a choke point, which causes problems with the whole system, because everything kind of runs in a flow. And so anyway, but that wasn't my comment. I just brought it up because somehow the Sounder got folded into the budget.
Yeah, we were having some fun.
Was that Citizen Hall?
Well, thank you, council, for the liberty of just kind of.
Mr. Mayor, can I say
digressing.
one more thing?
Please go for it.
The reason why I said this, and I told you that I could make this longer than you wanted, but
Oh.
I have to tell you, this is the most outstanding, what we call in the military, staff work I have ever seen.
Wow.
Thanks to the clerk's office. Thank you, Mr. Dan. It's got a table of contents.
All right.
Exciting. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. Good job.
Fantastic.
Very-
Good.
Thank you, Aaron.
Well, great. Council, this brings to, oh, by the way, before we conclude, are there any Zoom comments I should be acknowledging? I don't want to interrupt them if there's any. Okay. Council, thank you so much for your time. It's 7:29, less than an hour. We're adjourned. God bless.